Hey everybody, we're back with a new video. I had all kinds of plans to make videos while we were on our study abroad program in Prague, but none of them happened. We were so busy. We were traveling every day. We were in the studio a number of different times. But I'm back and I'm going to actually use some of the content we made while we were there for the next couple videos. But if you have any interest in learning about this program we do, let me know. Send me a message and I'll get you the information you want. Anyway, what we have first that I thought would be interesting to look at is the setup we did with this jazz trio. And this was the piano recording configuration. 3 microphones, all pointed at different frequency parts of the soundboard. So the blue cable is pointed towards the high part, the higher strings, the orange cable towards the mids, and then the red down towards the lows. Now, normally in the past, what I would do is have just 2 different microphones, one towards the mids to highs and one towards the mids to lows. But this was a really interesting setup, and this is one that the house engineer here at this studio was recommending. And so we went with it. And I've really actually learned a lot about piano recording and something I want to probably continue doing in the future in this style and some other styles. And part of that is because this gives me even more flexibility in terms of either having a really wide piano sound or a really centered piano sound. And so let's actually dive in. We're just going to listen to the piano tracks to this. It was a live recording of this trio, so there was drums and a bass player all in the same room, just with some dividers. But I have right now just the 3 piano tracks. And so we're going to listen to them just a little segment first. We're not going to listen to the whole song or anything, just a little section. And so those are just imported straight. So the first thing we would want to do is actually pan out on the left, so go left with the left piano mic and then right with the right. We could reverse these if we want more of the performer perspective, where essentially the high keys are on the right side instead of the left, but I'm going to keep them right now from the viewer of the listener. So you can definitely hear the leakage from the other instruments, but the piano itself sounds great. And it's a nice big image. Now, if we want, right off the bat, we have some really simple things we can do to change the sound. One of them would be to turn down the center mic, either some or all of the way. So you'll hear it gets a lot wider. And I might recommend going to headphones if you're not on headphones right now, just to hear some of the more subtle differences. Or we could, if we wanted to, pull down the other 2 and leave more of that center one up. Now, a really great way to be able to see what's going on and to manipulate this is to come through, and let's actually choose all of our tracks here. We're going to create a stack, and we'll use the summing stack. And so now all of these are going through this one summing track, which I can come through, for instance, and put on a multimeter. And we'll see some of what's happening as we make these changes. So right now, the left and the right are turned down some, and the center is up at unity. And let's push them all back up and pull down the center. So one interesting thing is with the correlation meters, we pull down the center, you'll notice that sometimes we go more into some phase cancellation, just slightly. With that center there, it stays nice and grounded and remains fully, in a positive correlation. And so the difference there is that when you have 3 microphones open on a single source like that you really should be looking for this correlation aspect to see how the mics are interacting. Sometimes you could actually flip the phase on one of them to help with that. In this case, not so much. But we do have some tools which we can use to manipulate this image with these 3 different microphones. So let's actually pull the multimeter down a couple. We want to keep it open. But let's now also come into our imaging. We have a direction mixer. And this, because it's on the summing track and not on an individual track, will allow us to change the spread, the direction of the 3 mics all combined at once. You'll notice when we pull the spread all the way out that we do go into the negative correlation, which means if we were to sum this to mono at that point, we'd actually lose some information. Could be interesting just as an effect if we really need it to go wider like that, but this may not be the full place to do that. The other thing we can do with this tool is split it, and we'll pull the crossover up to maybe 500. And now we could spread the high frequencies, but leave the low frequencies just as they were. So we get a little wider in the high frequencies and a little bit, well, the same in the low frequencies. We could even add or take away some of that. So at this point, what we're really doing is looking at some tools. We could change the stereo imaging of our piano. This really comes into play when we add in the drum microphones and the bass, because it'll really create an image with all of them together. But we're just looking at how 3 different mics can be used in a mix that has just 2 channels, like a stereo mix. And so we're looking at how we can change the width. We could make it have less width. We could adjust the high and low parts of this. The other tool we could use would be an equalizer, which is one of my favorite ways to change the width. And in our processing, we can do some mid-side. And so mid-side really refers to a mid-side microphone technique where you have one single microphone aimed at the sound source and then a figure 8 aiming to the sides, and how that can create a beautiful stereo image. Well, this EQ can also just process the mid, or things that are the same in both channels, the things right in the center, or the things that are different in both channels, which end up being in the left and the right. So now I could go to mid only and pull this down. Let's actually turn off the directional mixer for this just so we have the EQ. Sounds a lot like what the directional mixer was doing, which is very similar and probably is what it's doing. But we also have the side here. But because it's an equalizer, we could be coming through and boosting up the side with a little high frequency and perhaps rolling off some of the low frequency in the side information. So we can really sculpt this sound however we want using these tools and those 3 different microphones. And it really allows us to create either a huge piano sound that's larger than life, or we can really narrow this down and make it really a team player in the overall end mix as we add the other instruments. Okay, so this is really just looking at some of these tools with this specific piano recording technique, and I think that there's so much flexibility in Logic in ways that other programs, many of them don't just naturally have. You have to have third-party plugins to do some of this, but this is just a great way to be able to access that stereo image using a variety of input sources. Okay, so we're going to do a couple more videos like that in the coming week or so, just looking at some of these tracks that we made and the experience that we had with this program. Thanks for watching our videos. As always, like, share, and if you're not already, make sure you subscribe. So I will see you probably early next week with another video.